teaching us what there is to see. I was blind and now I see. So what there is to see. Okay, we can start with Geeta Dhyanam. O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy Krishna. Arjuna is the calf. People of purified intellect are the drinkers. And the milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. Okay. So we come back, forward, back, forward, back and forth. So the Lord has been speaking the absolute. I'm reminded that there are many, many people who hate different words. Of course, it's conditioning. Or who don't relate to different words. And so we use our own words to describe. Lord is one in particular that seems to have very haunting connotations with a lot of us. So from the concept of someone lording over us, I suppose. But of course, the situation, as Jesus would say in the book we were reading from last night, is that actually Beelzebub has been lording over us.
Who?
Beelzebub.
Satan.
Yeah, Satan.
Oh.
The self-centered self, the lower nature. What we've taken to be ourselves has been lording over ourselves. Like that. So we can say the absolute in the form of, and a little more discussion of that this morning. And he's been describing in brief his nature, and there's, over the next few chapters, there's a deeper dive in this in terms of understanding what is meant by the natures. And he's saying that I am both, through my nature, this entire world, and that which underlies it. That's where this started, right? And so he's been exploring this some. And then we come back to Hari, this one, and we'll move forward from here, which is 16. And we'll read again Swami Satchidananda's translation of this 4 basic reasons, and see if it sounds different this time.
Okay.
He says, good people worship me, Arjuna, for 4 basic reasons. First, to be relieved of suffering. Second, to understand life. Does that sound a little different this time? Yeah. So, because it has a deeper meaning than it sounded like the first time. To rise from poverty to wealth, and because they are wise already. So we pick up here. He says, of these 4, the wise excel. Because their devotion is steady, they love me more than anything else, and they are my beloved. So what's he speaking of here in terms of wisdom?
You let go of your smaller self and you give yourself to a higher purpose.
She has been talking about where she is and pervasive, right? Mm-hmm. So then what is wisdom?
Not dispersing our love, but singular.
To see what's here. So it's said to be wisdom because the only way to see it is through power of discernment. And the wisdom's within, power of discernment. Because otherwise we keep seeing the same stuff. But when you actually ask the questions, what's here, right? Then it takes you on an exploration. And if you don't stop asking the question until there's satisfaction to the question, that takes you to wisdom, right? In science we go a particular direction, but it leads to the same mystery that we're diving within. And also looking at what's without. So here, wisdom would be to see me, to know me as everything here. So the one who's wise then, how does that wise one, and for what purpose does that wise one worship the Lord, the Absolute? For what purpose?
To know him.
There wouldn't be any purpose.
Free himself.
It just would be.
Because that's all there's purpose of. In other words, who am I talking to? Who am I talking to right now?
The Lord.
Yeah.
Source.
Yeah. So why would I seek something else? Why would I relate to something else if I know what's here?
That's right. Yes.
Right? So he's calling that both wisdom, and he's saying that they come to me. They love me more than anything else. Does that make sense? Because why? Because the thing is what?
Because they know they are the Lord.
Yeah, because that thing is of the Absolute.
Yes.
That thing is of the Absolute. So, can I share a little story? So, there's an idea of detachment, where detachment seems to mean not loving. It's a very common notion, right? He's detached. He doesn't love anyone.
Yes.
So it's a common idea of detachment. And it seems like in spiritual path that we're being motivated towards this. When first we hear about spiritual path and withdrawing from the sense objects, and then we relate to family, and then we'll ask questions like, does that mean I'm not supposed to love my wife? Does that mean I'm not supposed to love my children? Does that mean I quit my family and go live in the forest? And by the way, that will seem attractive at some point. But that's only from delusion. That's only because we don't know what's really here. And we don't know that we have to dive deep in order to be able to relate to it.
To know love.
So the story is about Batu. And some of us here have heard the story of Batu. But here's the story. So with Swami Premananda, I had, through grace, been able to be with him. And then came back and walked pilgrimage, the coast to coast. And then I was able to go back twice after that. And God knows if I get there again. It would be wonderful, but I learned long ago that I'm not in control. So we'll see if it happens. But somehow also through grace, I was able to go back twice more. Well, the last time I was there was an ashram dog there, and I was there for a few weeks. And the ashram dog, his name is Batu. Batu. And Batu is a big dog, kind of one of the northern breeds, Alaskan breed. It has the curly tail. So, I mean, it took birth in India, I'm sure of it, but it doesn't look like the normal dogs that you see in India. It's very regal. He stood so upright and strong and had a deep bark and such a beautiful presence. It was fitting for him to be ashram dog. And he's kind of like Lakshmi here, the cat, in that he just came to the land one day. Nobody knew where he came from. He just came one day and he went right up to Swami. And so Batu was there when I was there. And there was this absolute love affair with Swamiji and Batu. And Batu ruled the dog kingdom in Uttarkashi, in that area. I mean, all the other dogs, I didn't physically see them, but I'm sure they were prostrating to him. He was very popular, and he loved to explore, but he loved more to be with Swamiji. So Swamiji would be in class or doing office work or whatever, or in other worship activities in the early morning. He didn't sleep a few hours a night or something like that, because he'd be up late with the whoever wanted to hang out watching cricket, and then, which is another form of worship of the Absolute, and then in the morning he'd be up very, very early for a morning puja, and then the day is, what is it, office and meeting with people, and class was a few hours a day and like that. But then in the breaks he would go outside, and Batu would be somewhere. And Swamiji would step outside, and so forgiveness on this sound here, he would say, "Batu!" And within about 2 minutes, Batu would be running back into the ashram. So wherever he was in the village, he would hear Swamiji, and he would immediately come. And he'd go right to Swamiji's side, and Swamiji would have crackers for him, and he would just sit there and hand him crackers and pet him, and just so anybody that would see him would see them as inextricable. It was a funny one, because there hadn't been a dog or an animal. There were cows and such, but no relationships like this with any of the cows. But they're like, wow. And so one day, and by the way, I have a photo somewhere, now that Google is recovered, it's actually there somewhere, a Batu with a bindi right here. So he's black, and there's a little red bindi right there, and then this white on his chest. So one day, Batu was playing with another dog, and they got run over. And Batu left the body immediately. And so he came, So that morning of class, people were talking amongst themselves and talking about whether Swamiji knew that Batu had died or not, and how would he feel about that. And the consensus seemed to be that he would be absolutely devastated, because they were so close. And as the morning went on, the class started on time. Swamiji was his normal self, jovial. He's Santa Claus. So we kind of see it a little bit in the picture here, but he's always, and he calls Yoga Vasishta joke Vasishta. And there's always a joke during it, but also he's joking as he's teaching these highest teachings. He's like, people would ask about the world, and I mean, in this period, he'd say, there is no world. So, joke Vedanta. So, but very effective. And so he's going about as normal. People are, they're kind of like giving each other the eye, and does he know? Doesn't he know? He must not know. And we realize he knows. Of course he knows.
Yeah.
Of course he knows. But he was completely undisturbed. Why? Why is wisdom? Wisdom. So he's attached to love. He's attached to that which is lovable. He's attached to that which is love itself. And where is it, do you suppose?
Here, I am that.
Everywhere. Oh. It's not just I am that from a limited sense, is it?
Big I.
Yeah,
Big.
Everywhere.
And so here.
Yeah, and so of course. And so he never was gone, never was missing. But then that opportunity comes in the form, and always these opportunities are coming in the forms and relating to the forms. But who are we seeing? What are we seeing? What are we worshiping? And there's a little more discussion about worship this morning as well, it seems. And some beautiful commentary by Swamiji. So, and by the way, it wasn't just Bhattu, because anyone that comes to the ashram, we would all feel that same love from Swamiji, you know? And does he get upset when we leave? We might imagine so, because we'll feel like, you know, we're really special, and we are. But he's seeing us deeply, you see. He's seeing us deeply. He's seeing who's here. And so, you know, we might do bad things. We might get kicked out of the ashram, but does he still love us? Yes. So this is because their devotion is steady, they love me more than anything else. So the love, as a result, is undisturbed. And they are my beloved. So now the Absolute describes a special relationship there as well. All sincere spiritual seekers are certainly blessed with noble souls. Among them, however, those who know the truth and with a steady mind set me as their highest goal, soon identify with me, and I regard them as my very self. So here he speaks of the path, right? Now, coming to know is like this, because as beings, this created being, we're pretty complex. And we're dealing with a lot of stuff inside. It's all inside. So many vasanas, so many tendencies, so many memories, so many scars, so many scars. So many knots in the personality. Thich Nhat Hanh would say knots like this. So much, so much, so much. And then if you look, how much of our personage is habitual? Effectively all of it. Conscious mind is real, it's a faculty, but we're so wrapped up in the past and imaginations about the future that
when I was in my early 20s, I was staying at this place with a friend, and it came with the refrigerator, and it was outside on the deck. And we decided it was a terrible location after being there for like a year. We moved it inside, and for months we would find ourselves walking out on the deck, and you're just like, why am I standing here?
Right, right. Yeah, it's a good example. It's a good example. Yeah. It's so much more than we would imagine. In fact, I shared at Puja on Thursday evening that when we were talking about this question of fate, Swami Premanandaji Maharaj would actually say everything happening here is according to fate. But then that doesn't mean predestined. That means that we're making our own fate constantly based upon the inner choices that we're making, and then our assertions and our efforts. So it's built up, and we built it up. I remember the day that I spoke out loud to myself. I said, "Oh my God, I'm in such a deep." I felt like I was in a trench, a deep, deep trench, just so oppressive. And then I realized, who dug it? Yeah, well, there's power in that. There's power in that, because then it means, okay, then I can get out. But in this way. So the way knowledge comes is as if in a flash, but it's not integrated knowledge yet. In order for it to be integrated knowledge, the habitual nature is going to have to be remade. The habits are going to have to be remade. Because all of our actions are coming as a result of the habits. But knowledge, real knowledge, is current. When you have a flash and you say, So I remember the moment, son of a gun, this is all God. And so you could say that's self-realization. Well, in a way, it's a realization, but then you have to remake yourself in that image. You have to live it then. And so, but all of the habits are the old stuff. And so what's fear, what's anger, these are all habitual. They're all based, and what are these desires? Well, the desires are residual. Right, if I really know, then I would only desire one thing, which is to see the Lord always, to always be in the company of the Lord, wherever I am. If I knew, then that would become the desire. Right? But then you still have all of these desires. Where are they coming from? And they manifest, right? They manifest through as if the sense is pulling us this way and that, towards a girl or a guy or a car or money or whatever, or fame so, but wisdom says, but why do I need all of that? Because that's not real and it won't satisfy. So this is what we're dealing with, right? What he's speaking of. So you know something, but do you really know it? And are you integrated in it? Are you whole in it? Are you complete in it? And this is the process. This is sadhana. Really, when we start getting some flashes, intuitive flashes that somehow break through, and then we ask these questions and we follow where the questions go. And of course, it's conscious mind asking the questions, the power of discernment, asking the questions, and then we get an answer, and then what do we do? And it resonates. But then there's so much weight, as it were, based on those old habits, right?
Yeah.
I remember Christmas Carol. We're getting to be Christmas time, so we'll watch a Christmas Carol. There's so many different recordings of it, so we'll pick one and watch together on Tuesday night. This Tuesday night would be the time that's coming for Christmas Carol. And the symbolism of Bob Marley, who I think we all have heard of Bob Marley, who left the body, and he lived as such a terrible ogre, and he came, the ghost of Christmas past, he came before that, and he came with all of these chains, right? And these chains are these habits that we all are carrying around. We said baggage the other day. So how to integrate then when we begin to know? He says, all sincere spiritual seekers, that's sincere, meaning it's really important. Now, I want to know what's more, and I want to live according to it, are certainly blessed with noble souls. Among them, however, those who know the truth and with a steady mind. So cultivating a steady mind. Set me as their highest goal. So know what you're living for. What are you living for? Kartikeya, would you mind? You can get over there and I'll read this. Soon identify with me, and I regard them as my very self, capital S, self. So please read.
It says, practical wisdom. See nothing, look at nothing but your goal ever shining before you. The things that happen to us do not matter. What we become through them does. Each day, accept everything is coming from God. At night, give everything back into his hand.
So practical approach related to what Krishna is speaking of here. So set me as the highest goal and keep that goal ever shining before you. Because things happen, right? You think things happen here. Constantly, as if trying to take us away from the goal, but really it's not that. They're happening in order to get you to strengthen in that goal and to achieve it. It's not happening. There's nobody here because who's behind all of this action? There's nobody here that's trying to make you fall. the world is functioning in the way that it does, finally, as spiritual seekers, in order to help us to rise, like the lotus, in order to come out of that lower nature, in order to rise up out of it. And how do we do it? By identifying with the highest instead of identifying with the lowest. That's that movement in the we could say in Christian tradition, from identifying as a sinner to identifying as a child of God. Right? No, that's not supposed to be a forever thing. Because we're not the flesh. So, and then I regard them as my very self. After many lifetimes, a person grows wise and takes refuge in me and nothing else. Then he or she realizes that I am all that is. And he says, such a great soul is rare indeed. But this is who we are. This is what we have in us. Others still allow personal desires to lead astray their good judgment. And recognize where that force is coming from. It's not an outside force. It's not like Satan is something outside that's tempting me and all of that. It's an inner force, which is very much habitual, but still rooted in a notion of being separate and needing to have something for myself that will satisfy myself. And so understanding what's being shared, that will work as an inner force to steal our conviction, but also to lead us astray, depending upon the choices that we make. Right? So others still allow personal desires to lead astray their good judgment. Thus they follow their lower nature and worship lower gods for their blessings. So this will be related to more easily in India, what he shares here, the worship of lower gods. In India, there are these. Let's say this. So there's Lakshmi, for example. Now we would say that in fact there's just one highest, and the one highest is all pervasive. And this is clearly what Lord Krishna is teaching here. But Lakshmi, then what is Lakshmi? Lakshmi is the goddess of abundance, which actually can be interpreted as all abundance, from physical wealth to spiritual wealth, knowledge of self. And so if that's the case, one could worship Lakshmi in many different ways. If one wants money and believes oneself to be struggling in the need of money, and India, of course, is not exactly a wealthy country, so you could see that would be very common. I mean, if you don't even have enough money to put good food on the table regularly every day, and many people are in that situation. In the US, in the West, the tendency might be to steal it. There, the tendency would be to pray to Lakshmi. And so, how can you say that's bad? So in India, there are more Lakshmi temples than any other temple. Not surprising in light of that. But there's a relationship to God in a lower standpoint. So that can be fairly easy for us to see and relate to. Okay, and maybe they know that God is actually the highest and all pervasive, but they're just wanting to deal with a particular aspect right now because they just need money to have food or whatever, right? So maybe there is some knowledge, but limited knowledge. And in the West, of course, their situation is different. But Lord Krishna would still say that even when you see the man or the woman, the boss, the person who's going to hire you and give you money so that you can put food on the table, Krishna would say, that's also my form. That's also a lower God. It's a way for a Westerner to relate a little bit more to what he's sharing. In other words, if I am all that is, and it's this world, all of this is my nature, and I am the substratum to all of this, then who here is not a form of God? And so we relate in delusion to someone as something other than a form of God. We worship them. What does worship mean? Well, I used to worship my boss. I mean, it's not a foreign. What does worship mean? It means to bring your awareness to a thing and to identify with it and to offer of yourself to it, asking for something. And so how is that different than what we do in our daily life? I mean, some of us in the West, we worship money. Some of us worship power. Some of us worship our solitude. And we tend to see it as something separate from us, whatever it is that we're worshiping. And so we give of ourselves, right, in order to have what it has to offer. So he would say, actually, that's the same as that puja in India. Because we're giving what are we giving? Well, we have limited time, right? It's not ours, but still we're here for a little while, so we have limited time. We have limited resource, we have limited energy, limited strength. As this human incarnation, this person is limited, right? So it can't give everything. So when we're identified as this, still we give, right? We give in order to get a few dollars or in order to get recognition or whatever. You have to give to get. So that's also, with what's being shared here, that's also a form of worship. And Lord is actually saying, still you're worshiping me. Does that resonate? Still you're worshiping me. Still you're worshiping my form. And then one more, and we'll pick up here tomorrow morning. But then he goes from there. And so there's a question of what are we worshiping? And it's really a good question in our soul seeking, in our looking, what are we worshiping? And recognizing that he's speaking to us as the highest. He's not speaking to us here as a limited anything. He's saying all of the limited is actually of me, and I am in it. I'm not affected by it, but I'm there. So what he's guiding us to do is relate to the highest, even in the limited situation. And so he says, devotees may select any name and form as the object of their worship. That doesn't just mean I select Lakshmi, I identify, and I will worship the Absolute through Lakshmi and seek the bounty of spiritual freedom. It doesn't just mean that. It doesn't. We all have in the traditions, when we become sincere spiritual seekers, then we'll have a tradition. It's called religion. Here we're just saying tradition. And we'll have an Ishta Devata, a particular form through which we choose or that resonates with us in order to relate to the highest. So some would choose Jesus, some would choose Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Some would choose Krishna, some would choose Ganesha, all different, right? But he's saying here, he's speaking as the highest. He's not speaking as Ganesha or Krishna or any of these. Easily misunderstood, we get it. But he's speaking as the highest. And he's saying, any form. You may choose your form, but worship me. Worship me, the Absolute, the highest, the substratum, and that from whom all of this is the nature of. So, and it doesn't make any difference if it's Jesus or Muhammad or Moses, or so many, or Swami Shivananda, any of those, as long as you're relating to that form as being a form of the highest, and that you're really relating to the highest instead of the form. So highest through the form instead of. So he says, devotees may select any name or form of object as their worship. And by the way, in the same way, you may relate to something lower too. But if you relate to something lower, then you'll get that which is lower. Right?
Yes.
So, I mean, if you worship money, Jesus is saying that's a form of me. And if what you expect is a few dollars, I'll give it to you. You'll get it. But it's actually coming from me. It's mine now. You don't have it. It's not yours. Right? It's me, whatever it is. Whatever it is. So this is such a liberating teaching when we're able to really listen and integrate. He says, select any name or form as the object of your worship. But if you have sincere belief, shraddha, I make your faith strong and steady. 22, we'll close with this, and then there's beautiful commentary that we'll pick up on in the morning. Then when they worship with steady faith, the form that they have chosen, they get what they want. But actually, I am the one fulfilling their desires. So, and this statement can be applied to anything with steady faith. I was very successful in business. I wasn't successful. This is it's a funny thing, right? People said I was successful, but real success personally is measured based on satisfaction, not based on monetary success or anything else. But what I did was I got what I wanted, and I was so humbled later, and I thought I was big, but I was so dissatisfied, right? And later, so humbled, thank God, by realizing, wait a second, that was never me. Huh? That was never me. I didn't do any of that. All that had happened was this technique that he's referring to. I became single-pointed, and I knew it was within reach. So all of my energy would be focused towards it, and then, later I realized, oh my God, that was you. That was you bestowing whatever I wanted. And so it's quite something. This is what's being shared. And so, but in the same way, if we can find the wherewithal within us to really wish to break free of this being chained to the relationship with the sense objects and to these lower desires. Sometimes we'll think when we're in very painful situations, we'll think something like, I must have asked for too much. I didn't get what I really wanted, and I must have asked for too much. I don't know if anybody's ever had that thought and reflection. I've certainly had it. But really it is, no, we don't ask for enough. So, because whatever it is that we ask for, as long as we can get to this single-pointed mind and really have the faith that it will come and not be bedeviled by all of these ideas and notions, I'm not going to be successful, etc., then the Lord says, I shall give it to you, even if that is freedom.
And we let go of attachment to what that looks like or the outcome of that.
At some point, we lose ourselves in it. Yeah.
Pure devotion is being lost in.
Losing.
Please.
Yeah, no, you got it. You have the concept. You said it beautifully. I don't need to say anything.
Not yet. It's hard to describe.
It's very hard to describe, but the Lord is doing a good job here with us to help us. So, and we lose ourselves and find ourselves. Oh. Jai Gurudev. May we all find ourselves. Okay, let's close with final prayers in Arati, page 174. Oh, dear Lord. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Maitor Mukshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Maitor Mukshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyamamritat Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Makashir Dukhabha Bhave Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotir Gamaya Mritor Mahamritam Gamaya Om Purnamida Purnamidam Purnamudashate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. And below Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki, and for all the saints and sages of all the traditions. Let's rise for Arati.